December 15th, 1984 was the release date of a very beloved kaiju film, especially to me. This film resurrected a beloved giant monster that we all know and love. This film is, in my opinion, one of the best films in the Godzilla series, and today I want to discuss this topic to celebrate its 40th anniversary. I am of course talking about The Return of Godzilla. Now, the question that I propose to this, and it's not really a question that is highly debated or anything like that, but it is basically asking, is The Return of Godzilla a Showa or Heisei film? And again, a lot of people aren't necessarily torn on this. It's not like this is a hot button topic, but I have seen a couple people, and even in my community, discuss, the fact that the film was made during the Showa era, traditionally in Japan's history, but is considered by most to be part of the Heisei series. So what I want to propose here is let's talk about the classification of The Return of Godzilla as a Showa or Heisei film. First off, the film was released during the Showa period of Japan's history, but the film's thematic and stylistic narrative choices departed from the Showa films, and this pretty much established it as the inaugural film for the Heisei era. When we examine the film, it does reveal that it does play a pivotal role in redefining the Godzilla franchise, as we all know. You can look at this in two different ways. You can look at it in terms of a historical era of Japan and also its cinematic era of the Godzilla franchise. So, looking at it in terms of a historical era, Godzilla 1984 released during the Showa period of Japan's history. This was from 1926 to 1989. And this was named after the emperor. Now, based on this historical criteria, the film would be considered a Showa-era Godzilla film. And the Showa-era Godzilla films, as we all know, was from 1954 to 1975, and it was characterized by a blend of science fiction, fantasy, and social commentary. Now, a lot of the Heisei films and Millennium films can also be considered those, but in terms of Showa stuff, it was campy, it had fantastical elements, and Godzilla was often portrayed as a benevolent force of nature as the films continued on. We all know that the Godzilla in the Showa era was the symbol for the atomic power and destructive potential of mankind. But of course, as the Showa era continued, we did see the gradual evolution of it turning into more of a lighthearted hero look. And in the Showa series, Godzilla was often depicted more as a hero than he was an anti-hero. So when we get to The Return of Godzilla, this marks a significant departure from the Showa-era conventions. It has a darker and more serious tone, it has an emphasis on Godzilla's destructive power and having the environmental consequences of human actions, and of course the film having a somber tone, its atmosphere oppressive, and basically having the message saying that humanity has pushed nature too far. This has a shift in tone, which then aligns it more closely with the subsequent Heisei-era films. Now, the Heisei-era films often explored a darker and more mature themes, and The Return of Godzilla serves as basically a direct sequel to the original 1954 film. But with this, it basically ignores all the events of the other Showa films, basically making it a reboot, or a direct sequel. And this is a deliberate attempt to pretty much establish the new continuity. Now, the production reflects a desire to break away from the established Showa-era formula, according to the directors and producers. And what they did was to create a more realistic, frightening, and powerful portrayal of Godzilla. And they wanted to create a Godzilla that was, of course, looking more realistic. They wanted him to be more frightening and basically just superpowered compared to what the Showa version of him was. And of course also the film's visual style, since they had a bigger budget and changing up the way the special effects look, it definitely contributed to its distinct identity from not really looking like a Showa film and looking more like the Heisei films going forward. And even as far as the music is concerned, obviously Akira Ifukube did not return to compose the music for this movie, but this movie had a different tone to it in terms of the music that also separates it from the Showa series. So, again, you can say technically that this film is a Showa-era film, but really it's more of a Showa film period piece for Japan. But, and again, I'm not really saying anything that's new, but we do know this as the Heisei film. I personally would really classify it as Heisei. So again, while technically being released during the Showa period of Japan, cinematically it is obviously categorized as the first film in the Heisei era of Godzilla. And again, I know I'm not saying anything that's new. I know I'm not really having an opinion this is not a hot button topic. But I know that there are some people that might consider it a Showa film. But again, I want to look at it as, if you're going to say that, it has to be more of the historical aspect. So that's why 1984 is sort of a special film, because it sort of has the dual classification of basically being a historical film, which is obviously set in the Showa era, but then cinematically and chronological-wise, or canon-wise, is part of the Heisei series. So what do you guys think? You tell me in the comments below. Do you believe Godzilla 1984 is a Showa film, or do you believe that it is more like what a lot of people consider it to be, part of the Heisei era? Let me know in the comments below. Let's start a discussion. I would love to read them, and let's all celebrate the Return of Godzilla's 40th anniversary. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay big, G fans.